All right, thank you very much, Flo Primetime Latwaba. Mandela Centenary celebrations continue. The first batch of climbers that hiked up Mount Kilimanjaro are back home. They have each raised 85,000 Rand and more to buy sanitary towels. A second group is heading to Africa's highest peak this weekend. Now, joining us now are coordinators for the Trek4Mandela, Richard Mabaso and Angela Young, a jeweler and founder of Impilo Collection, who returned from the journey last week. I think I'm going to start first with Angela Young. Okay, how was your experience at Mount Kilimanjaro? How far did you get, first of all?
I went all the way to Stella Point. It was.
Is that the highest point?
No, it was Ukuru was the highest point. I was 150 meters away from Ukuru because I forgot my sunglasses.
Okay. So what, you couldn't go higher?
I couldn't go higher. It was risking for my eyes because if you don't have your sunglasses, you're just walking on ice, it's very risky.
Angela Young, what's the experience like to be on Mount Kilimanjaro so high up?
It was very challenging, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
What's challenging about it? What's challenging about it physically?
We actually summit through the night, so you don't see anything except your torch, your head torch. And all you see is the people in front of you. And it was very emotionally because you don't know where you're going. All you see is starlight, and you're trusting the person in front of you. And no matter who, so we following Siposiso as the leader of our tour, and he tell us, fill the gap, fill the gap. So we just keep going, no matter where you're going, and you just follow the person in front of you and trusting your instinct and keep walking no matter how cold was it. It was actually minus 20. You don't feel your feet, you don't feel your hand, and my nose was bleeding. And you keep saying to yourself, you can do it. You're thinking about the girl child that you are sponsoring, and you have the courage to do it.
So let me ask you, at every step of the way, do you have the opportunity to stop and say, hey guys, this is as far as I can go, I want to turn back? Does every participant have the opportunity or
Absolutely.
They have the right to stop?
Some people returned, and some people vomited all the way through. It's actually very, it's hard sore to see people vomiting all the way through. It's humility the time you see people are suffering. But they still made it. They claw themselves through to the top.
So speaking to you, when you've gone as far as you've gone, how has that changed your personality, your view of life, and has it made you stronger, and are you a better person as a result of that experience?
Absolutely. I said to myself, nothing is impossible. The word itself, it says, I am possible. It's really remind myself the suffering of 27 years of Madiba going through. It's really, to me, for the 19 hours that I walk, it's nothing.
Wow. Now I need to ask you, because a lot of viewers are quite interested. We're going to talk to Richard in a second, but a lot of our viewers are keen to take this trip. Now you've prepared for it, you've trained for it. Compare the training from the actual experience, and does the training actually help you?
Oh, you need to train for it, because every single steps, you prepare yourself for it, and your training does not equivalent to the day that you summit, because it's so important that your soul and your mentally have to be in line for what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're there for, you cannot summit.
Really? I think we need to underline that statement right there. So let's turn our attention to the founder Trek4Mandela, Richard Mabasa. You started all this. Why?
Okay, thank you very much, and a very good morning to your viewers at home. For me, it started in 2011 when I just overheard a conversation between my mom and my niece, and she was going to start her periods on that day. But she didn't know what was happening, and she told my mom, and my mom shushed her and said, "No, you can't talk about this in front of your uncle." So after being subjected to such horrific experience, I thought maybe there could be an opportunity for me as an uncle to do something. And that something was for me to be empowered, to be able to go to the shop and buy sanitary pads. Because not only that I would never do that before I started caring for girls, I would do everything in my power to actually avoid walking through the sanitary pads aisle, because as peers growing up, you know, it's things that were taboo. So on that day, it dawned on me that not only as society, we shouldn't see sanitary pads as a women issue. We should see it as a societal issue, because there I was as an uncle and I was working, but I would never have been able to help my niece. So I wanted to start a campaign that will help not only my niece now, other young girls, because after the experience, I realized that actually living in South Africa, we are in society where most of our girls and boys come from child-headed families. So how can we empower these young boys to make sure that they can support their sisters? You know what, I started immediately after, you know, having the exciting idea or concept, I started going around asking for donations. To my surprise, I just got asked so many questions about why are you doing this, because you're a man, etc. And you know, I got a bit discouraged to not even try to pursue further, until one day I just, you know, had one of those random thoughts that maybe I need to do something I've never done before. And at that moment, I just thought of Kilimanjaro. And a very good friend of mine, who is Sibusiso Vilane, the first black African to summit Mount Everest, he just came to my mind. So I called him and said, "My friend, can you please take me up Kilimanjaro next year?" Which I told him what it was for, and he agreed. And when he agreed, I got excited. But after getting excited again, I'm like, but why or how will this particular expedition be different? Because people climb Kilimanjaro every day, and you know, it just goes in, day out, without being noticed sometimes. So I then came up with a concept to say, actually, it would be nice if I can do it and summit on Mandela Day. Then, of course, I needed to get the Mandela Foundation endorsement, and the idea then was to call them and say, guys, I want to climb Kilimanjaro with a friend of mine for this campaign for two things. One, to stand on the African rooftop to amplify the message, to empower young girls through provision of sanitary pads. But number two, we will summit on Mandela Day to make a big announcement to say, make every day Mandela Day. So how we do that by saying on the 18th we summit, we come back on the 20th. Throughout the year, all year round, we do sanitary pads distribution. And guess what? Every single day that we are at school distributing sanitary pads, we were at Limpopo yesterday with the IDC. And today from here, we are actually heading to Zonke Zizwe for a distribution to over 2,000 girls. And all of them will be receiving 6 months supply of sanitary pads. So I said to the Nelson Mandela Foundation, through Trek4Mandela, we will summit the mountain. And then through Caring for Girls, we will ensure that for every day that we are reaching to each and every young girl, we are making their day a Mandela Day. So that's a long and short of how it all started and why we got here today.
Richard Mabasa, that's an amazing initiative.
Yeah.
Now, for the majority of our viewers watching this show, and for those of them who want to get involved, who want to go up Mount Kilimanjaro for the same cause, what's the process?
The process is very easy. You go onto our website, which is www.Trek4Mandela. Trek4Mandela is spelled TREK 4 Mandela.com. Then they can click under contact us, I think there's also a link for Join Trek 2019. We already have more than 60 people who have expressed interest. We will be launching, I'm sure if I'm not mistaken, around the 13th of September at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, but we will be sharing those details at a later stage. But as soon as we have the dates, we'll be launching and people can come in and what they have at their disposal is people like Angela who have been there before. So they will not be asking me questions. They will be asking people like Angela to say, so how did you feel? Or how did you, deal with your fears, etc., etc. But also, I think for me, I need to highlight that the biggest call that we're trying to make through this campaign is to get government, private sector, and communities to work together on this particular issue. So we are saying, like I said earlier, that this morning we have a big activation in Zonkizizwe at one of the high schools there. It's called Sijabulile High School. And we're bringing 4 other high schools under one umbrella to do motivations, but also to give all of them 6-month supply of sanitary pads. And that particular initiative is sponsored by Shell South Africa. So we are saying it shouldn't be government's job and it shouldn't be a private sector's job. It should be everyone's responsibility to ensure that young girls do not miss school because of lack of sanitary pads.
Okay, let's move over to Angela. Angela, I asked you how much money you've raised. And I said you raised 85,000 Rand. You were a bit insulted by that. You raised a lot more than that. How much have you raised?
150,000.
Well,
and she's not stopping, eh?
Yes.
And you're not stopping.
Yeah.
Money's still coming in.
Okay, so those who want to get involved, how do they start raising money for your cause, for the Nelson Mandela cause? What's the process like? How do they begin?
So we do have the banking details through the Imbamba Foundations.
Right. So how did you go about it? Who was the first corporation you approached, and how did you get them to support you?
Of course, my family and friends, they are my supporter, like my diamond dealer clubs, and also the Chinese consulate.
Chinese consulate.
Yeah, they were very supportive over me, and my community, and also my family's been very supportive because actually they are the most supportive over my Trek4Mandela because it's very emotional for them. Also, what happened to Guguzulu, people were very considerate of you going for Kilimanjaro because they were saying, oh, why are you going to Kili? Is this something that you have to do it? But through Trek4Mandela, they will understand this is something not just going to Kili, but with a sense of missions.
With a sense of mission.
And when we go on the summer day, Siposisus asks us a question, says, ask yourself a question. Ask, why are you here for? And this is very profound.
Yes.
Before you go on. So you actually reconsidered and re-asking yourself that question all the time, every single steps. Especially for myself, I had a very deep conversation with Siposiso, saying, why do we call Kilimanjaro a she? Why don't we call a he? Because the mountain is the mother of land. We're going back to the mother of land. And my mother left me when I was 3, and I only reunion with her last year after 30 years. So the first time when I met her, after 30 years, my heart was pumping. It felt like pumping out of my chest. The more I go closer to Kili, it feels like I'm going back to my mother. It's the same feeling. When I was at base camp, my heart was 85 pumping per minute. When I go all the way up, it's more than 150.
Wow.
And I was looking at my watch. It's unbelievable. You really working every single steps to the top of Kilimanjaro. And that's the efforts that we're making for the dignity of the girls.
Again, I've got to give Richard Mabasa all the credit for, being the catalyst for this initiative. It seems this particular journey, I can see Angela's tearing up. She's passionate. Everyone that's involved in Nelson Mandela Trek seems to be very passionate, and they take it very seriously. It seems transformative. You tell me, when you come back from a trip like that, do you have a greater command over life when you operate in business and in family? Can you talk to me about that?
No, look, it's very interesting, and getting or hearing feedback from Angela and many other climbers, I'm always reminded of the fact that we are representing a bigger cause than all of us, but also we are using one of the global icons, Mandela. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and I told them that one of the things that Madiba always did, he would always make the next person feel more important than him. And I still remember him accepting the World Cup, that as South Africans, as Africans, we accept this World Cup with humility. So when I come back from the mountain, I just become more attached to humanity, to my core values of why we do the things we do. So it's very interesting that next Friday, we are going back again, and this will be my 6th summit of Kilimanjaro. And every time I go up on that mountain, it's different. The experience, I cannot tell you how much it just changes you as a human being to look at life differently, to appreciate every single thing that you have. I mean, Angela and other climbers can tell you that when you get to Kilimanjaro, you get there, first day, you still have water, you still have, bit of Wi-Fi here and there. Second day, you start losing some of those things. By day 4, you have almost nothing except yourself and your 2 legs to take you up Kilimanjaro. So what the trip does, it strips you of everything else, and it reconnects. We often say that it disconnects you to reconnect you. So it disconnects you from the world to reconnect you to your maker, almost. Like she said that it emulated her mother. Right. But also, it's an emulation of the long walk to freedom. So we often think about, we often talk about Mandela spent 27 years, but we very rarely look at what each and every minute, second, of those 27 years entailed.
We got to stop there, Richard. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. It's been a great discussion.